Okay, so it's time to talk about the champion's ego. This is something that's been reoccurring. This theme of the champion's ego has been reoccurring through the whole program. And in the first module, I talked a bit about it. I talked a lot about it in the second module, but I didn't really go into, a detailed breakdown of how to develop the champion's ego and to talk about, what it is. I talked a little bit about the killing ego versus the champion's ego, but it's important that I talk about this. If you want to build confidence, if you want to create this confidence that gets you success, again, the confidence that when you approach a girl, when you go up to a woman, that woman's like, this is a guy that would fuck me. This is a guy that I would give my pussy to. If you want to become that kind of guy, you're going to have to learn how to cultivate an ego. Every guy who is successful with women, every guy who's successful in business, every guy who has any kind of success that you would want to have for yourself does have some kind of ego, a champion's ego, I call it. And it's the difference between the champion's ego and a killing ego. Again, some people think having ego is a bad thing. They think I want to be free of all ego, just flow. It's like I have some friends actually who are in the pickup community, and they're such givers. There's so much of a giver that it's almost coming from a compensating place. It's like they're trying to give so much as like a mask. They're putting on this little mask. They're like, I'm going to give, I'm going to give, I'm going to give. But really, is there any point to it? No. But here's the thing, like the champion's ego is an ego where you don't see yourself as better than anyone. It's not where, I see myself as better than anyone. It's a healthy ego. It's not an ego it's not an ego you have to fear. The champion's ego is the ego of a winner. Because again, if you've given value to anyone, if you're someone that people would consider to be a mentor, for example, like myself, I mentor students. I have guys that I mentor. As a mentor to these guys, as a mentor to these students, I have to have an ego. It's almost impossible for me to be able to mentor anyone or teach any of this without some kind of ego. Because what is the ego? It's where you see yourself as having some kind of skill or some kind of value to offer. It's like where you say, hey, I am qualified to teach this. I am qualified to share value, quote unquote. I am able to do this, right? That champion's ego is something that you need to cultivate. And that champion's ego is what gives you the spark in your eye. It's what gives you that pep step, that pep through life. That pep that's like, I'm a fucking winner. I'm a fucking champion. Again, the champion's ego. That's the name, right? So cultivating a healthy champion's ego, the first thing you have to understand is that having an ego isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with having an ego as long as it comes from the right place. And every successful person, like I said, has an ego, right? There's nothing wrong with the act of having an ego. The question is, where is that ego coming from? Is it coming from a place of attacking others? Is it coming from a place of, I am better than this person? The way I like to see it is this. This is how I see the champion's ego. This is my champion's ego. This is my ego that I have. And this is everyone else, but I don't look at everyone else. The difference between a killing ego versus champion's ego is the killing ego, you're constantly measuring your value as opposed to everyone else. And you think that everyone else is down here and I'm up here, right? That's the killing ego. That's where, you think I'm better than these other people, right? I'm better than everyone else. I deserve this. I'm entitled to this. Entitlement and deserving things are okay, but when it comes from the champion's ego, the killing ego is I'm entitled to this because the world owes me. The world owes me. And it's a very subtle mindset shift between the killing ego and champion ego, but in this kind of mindset, it's important that you notice the difference between your actions. What are the kind of actions you take? How do you manifest this ego? That's how you can tell the difference. If you're, again, coming from a value-taking position and you suck value from people around you, that probably means you have the killing ego. But if you're a value giver and you seek nothing in return, saying thank you, things like that, we already talked about that. That is how you cultivate that champion's ego. This is how you start to build this confidence. I feel like confidence builds up to having an ego. Like having a core confidence and building real confidence builds up to having this champion's ego, right? The killing ego is a negative, entitled perspective. It's where you're entitled, you feel you deserve everything, like you're some little king. It's like if you get rejected, you get butthurt by it. Why did that girl fucking reject me? And it stifles your success, and it comes from a taker frame. You stifle your success. Now, the champion's ego, which is the healthy version of the ego that you need to develop, it has different perspectives. There's different priorities for the champion's ego. The first one is you always appreciate your success, but you appreciate the success of others. All right, that's a huge thing. You appreciate the success of others. Now, this is interesting for me because my good friends, people that work with me, all know that like when average guys get laid who I'm not friends with, that are not my students, when they get laid, I don't actually like when they get laid. Like I get pissed off when like other guys get laid and I like see them getting laid. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm perfect, so that's probably why I have this, okay? But so if you see me out and someone else gets laid and I'm like, fuck that guy, I want to take his girl. I'm not saying that's good, okay? Maybe that's a little bit of the killing ego that I have personally, okay? But, and I don't know why I threw that in there even. That's like an example that's not the best thing. That's not the best version of this ego. So you're not going to be perfect all the time. But the example that I want to use when it comes to happy that others are getting success is an example of my students, right? When I have my students, I'm so happy more than anyone else when my students get laid. Like when I have a student text me and tell me, hey, we just finished program. The shit that you taught me, blah, 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 it worked. And now I have a girl that I still have the 2 days after program, like a same day late. I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, it's so exciting to me, right? Because I want to have other people get success. If there's a guy that I run into in a club who's a pretty cool guy, me and him connect, I'll be happy if that guy gets laid. Again, that's why I was kind of elaborating. There's a little difference. If it's some random dude who's trying to like fuck with my students or fuck with my friends, I'm not going to be happy. But if it's a dude that I think is really cool, I'm really happy he gets laid. I appreciate the success of others. That's one of the number one rules of having a champion's ego. It's when other people get success, do you appreciate it? And it's not just like, because there's some people, I know some people that are like borderline, I'm not going to get too specific, but they're borderline sociopaths, and what they do is like in the community, when there's someone that's good, like really good at pickup, they'll put them on like a legit list, for example. But these kind of people, it's not that they value the success of others. What it is that they're seeking to learn and get value from these people because you're like, hey, this is my roster of people that are really good. These are the people you can take more value from. I'm talking about appreciating even someone who's a nobody, appreciating their success. Like if someone else gets a win, you appreciate that success. Not a success like these are the good guys. These are the guys that I care about. These are the guys I'm going to give my attention to. No, it's like where even someone who's lower than you, they get success. You appreciate that. Like, so perfect example. I used to host these Viking meetups, these free meetups here in New York. Well, I'm in Austin shooting this, but in New York, I used to host these free meetups. And what would happen was at these meetups, like a lot of the guys there, I wasn't coaching. These are not students of mine. They were free meetups. So I would just invite people to come for free. And normally when I'm out, I focus only on my students. So sometimes I would have a student and we'd be at the meetup and I would be coaching him and the other guys would kind of see what happened. And if one of the guys got laid at the meetup, I'd be so happy for him. And a lot of times these are guys that would never pay me. They would never end up paying me for coaching because they'd just come and, get free shit from the meetup and they'd never pay me. But I was so fucking happy that they would get laid. I was like, dude, that's so fucking awesome. The reason why is because I appreciate other people's success. That's part of the champion's ego. And again, I'm still working on this and I still fall short. There's times where I get mad at different things that shouldn't get me mad, but I still do appreciate other success as best as I can. Okay, the second principle of the champion's ego is always seeking to learn. It's always seeking to learn from people around you. So it's always essentially when you think that you can be better at something, and it's not even like when you think you can be better, but you always think you can be better. It's like you always think you can be better at something, and you're always learning from other people. Someone asked me, they said, Tim, when do you think you'll stop learning game? When do you think that your game journey will be done? And I said, honestly, I don't ever think that. I mean, I may not be going out and cold approaching in the next couple of years. I'm going to be done that. But like, I'm always learning from people. I'm always learning from everyone. One of my students, we were on an intro for a program I was running in 2017. And he said to me, when did you know that you were like good enough to teach this and that you were an authority in game? When did you know that? And I said, part of it is I knew just because my results, but I also, it was hard for me because my mentor, he was always a mentor to me. And I was always learning from him. Even when I was teaching and he was like, dude, you're getting laid a lot and your students are getting laid. You should start getting paid for this. I was like, I just didn't feel like I was worth it because I always come from a student's perspective. And now I think I take this a little too far, and sometimes actually I don't give myself enough credit if I'm being honest. Like sometimes when it comes to other people, I overvalue certain people because I learn from them. And I look to learn from people maybe more than I probably should. But this is something that I've been able to cultivate, and I think that it's important that as a man, you always want to learn from others. Always. You can learn from people that are not even as good as you. Like people that are below me, quote unquote below me, I learn from. Some of my greatest teachers have been my students without even realizing it. They haven't realized, they haven't tried to teach me, like, Tim, listen to what I say, but I've just learned from them by being around them and seeing how they operate and seeing the little things that they do that are good that I don't have yet. Maybe the little appreciations they have for a certain girl, or some little opening line he used, or maybe even beyond women, maybe something one of my students is doing in his business or something that a potential mentor of mine has done. Like, I'm always a student of the game, and I'm always a student of life. Like, I'm always looking to learn. So part of the Champions Ego is where you never get so egotistical where you feel like you can't learn. You can always fucking learn. Another aspect of the Champions Ego is being honest in your strengths and your weaknesses, okay? This is really fucking important. And this is something that I think is very similar to the always learning thing, but you always have to be honest with where you're weak and where you're strong. And I'm not going to get into too much detail about like my own personal life with this one, but there are aspects of my life that I know for a fact I need to improve that I'm very weak in. And I'm open about those aspects of my life to the people that are close to me, right? I'll say like certain things I need to work on. Some people are just delusional in the fact that they believe that they have everything covered. And that's factually true. Like, some people get success and it gets to their head and they start to constantly validate themselves in public forums and all those kind of things. But, you know, that leads to just a negative killing ego. Again, there's some people that like have actually really good game but have a complete negative ego. So if you're hearing this and you're like, how is this related to game? My friend, it's not. Like, this is not just a game, what I'm telling you. This is how you can take game and step outside of game and still get massive success. It's by cultivating this champion's ego. Okay, so you literally go out and you constantly are aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. This doesn't mean that you have to invalidate yourself and put yourself down. No one's asking you to do that. But you should be aware of where you're successful at and aware of where you can learn, aware of what your weaknesses are. Know where you have room to grow. Know where you have room to grow. And the fourth part, the final aspect of the champion's ego, is something I call building others up and building others up instead of tearing others down, right? So I'm constantly looking to build other people up. As someone who is working on cultivating this healthy ego, I always want to make sure that I'm building people up instead of tearing them down. Now, there's times where, yes, I will troll people and make fun of people. And if you're in my Facebook group, maybe you've seen me do kind of a little jab at someone potentially. But generally, as a general rule of thumb, I'm always looking for ways to build people up around me. Like, if I see a guy out who recognizes me, I'm like, dude, how's your night going? Let me help you get laid potentially, assuming I'm not working with my student in that moment. I'll focus on someone else, because I always want other people to get success. Again, appreciating other people's success. And it's so funny because there's teachers in the community that I actually used to look up to, guys like who have fucked an enormous amount of girls, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of girls, and they actually brag about that. That's like their big feature in the community. I fucked this amount of girls, right? Which is fine, that's great. But these instructors, a couple guys that have a name in my head, they don't look to build other people up. They're constantly just tearing down. It's like, even in their Facebook groups, it's like a constant tearing and wearing of other people down. It's like, just how can I add negativity to this person's life and troll and tease and take this person down? They're not seeking to build up others. And this doesn't build character. And I'm not saying that you'll get laid if you do this. I mean, this will help you actually be more attractive to women as a whole, and you'll become a real man. You'll grow as a man if you do this, right? But this is how you build your confidence. If you're starting out with a very low confidence, you build your confidence by cultivating a champion's ego, by looking to build up other people. Not being a clown with it where you're like, oh, you're better than me. No. It's just, hey, I want you to have success and I'm going to get success. Fuck yeah, I'm going to get laid. But I want to get you laid too, bro. Let's make shit happen together, right? Building this champion's ego, that's super fucking important. So when you go out, I want you to focus on these things. Focus on these 4 principles: appreciating your success as well as the success of others, making sure that you're always learning. So you're always seeking to learn from people. That doesn't mean you have to ask everyone, teach me, but you take little bits of advice and little insights from people that may even be below you. The other thing is being honest in your strengths and honest in your weaknesses. Don't be delusional about where you fall short, but don't be delusional about where you're good at either. Appreciate your own success. And the other thing is build other people up and don't tear them down. Be someone who can build up others and contribute to the success of others instead of tearing them down.